Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Brothers channel. And I cut the Kyrie 7 in half, as you guys can see. So this is a chop shop of the Kyrie 7, a dismantling of the Kyrie 7. If you guys do want to cop, I'll leave a link in the description box. This is the creator colorway. This one's going for 140 bucks. I believe it is still available. The bread colorway is out, and the GR colorways are 130 bucks. And if you guys do want a Nike ID, the Kyrie 7, it is 150 bucks. A lot of you guys have sent me a DM saying that the Baltic Blue is not available anymore for the base color, which sucks. So you can't really do this colorway anymore, but the pink is available. So you guys can still be creative with that. All the links are still gonna be in the description box if you guys do want to cop. I highly recommend that you do get the Kyrie 7. They are a very nice shoe to play in. So the Kyrie 7, I got two pairs. So this is the pair, this pair is new, I just got it in. And then this is of course the old pair that I chopped up. And as always, let's get it started off with the outsole, right? So if you look at the cross section cut of the outsole, it actually looks pretty thick. I do have a measuring tool here. Let's see approximately how thick it is. So it says 4.08 millimeters. So I guess it's around average, I would say. But of course, that doesn't really matter because, I mean the tread, first of all, is pretty soft and the grooves are very thin as well. So it wasn't very durable, as you guys saw from the performance review. And then now moving on to the cushioning setup, right? So of course they're using a full-length Phylon midsole, and it's very interesting, right? So the first things first, if you feel the Phylon from the outside, like obviously from like the carrier, it's pretty damn stiff, right? But then if you feel it from the inside and you squeeze it, there's a lot of give. You guys see that? And it's everywhere, like here in the midfoot, here in the heel, it's soft everywhere. If you remove the insole is very glued down. It was actually really hard to take out the insole. So but anyways, so if you remove the insole and then you try to feel the Phylon through this strobo board, which, you know, the strobo board is very stiff, it's hard to feel the cushioning setup, right? So it has me wondering why, you know, shoe companies, I mean obviously they need the strobo board to attach the midsole and outsole to the actual upper, but you know, of course there's like the zoom strobo and all that, and it's just like way too stiff. You know, why do you have to glue it down so much, right? So especially in this, you know, as you guys can see. Okay, so first of all, the outsole is super duper hard to take off from the Phylon midsole, right? So yeah, I took a heat gun and I removed like part of the outsole here on the medial side where the outsole curvature is, where it's like attached to the upper. That part's super easy to take off, but then the parts where the rubber is attached to the midsole, it's super hard because once you heat that up, like of course you're trying to like soften the glue up and then you're trying to remove it. But then when you do that, the Phylon gets super soft too, and then it attaches and it's like still stuck to the rubber outsole. So I couldn't really, you know, remove it. Props to people who can do it, but I couldn't. It was really hard, so sorry about that. But like looking through like this section, I removed this part. This was a super glued down, very hard part on top of this strobo board. And then there is another strobo board. It's like this fabric that's very glued down, right? So from this cross section cut, if you squeeze the Phylon, like I said, it looks and feels pretty damn soft. Like there's a lot of compression, right? But then if you feel it from here, it's rock solid. It's super hard. There's no give at all, which is insane, right? So that's pretty crazy. And of course you guys can see the zoom turbo unit from the top, and of course it takes the entire, or pretty much the entire surface area of the forefoot. It's articulated as well. You guys can see the articulation, and when you try to press down where the zoom turbo is, like on top of this strobo board, it's just so stiff, guys. And of course once you break it in and all that, you can feel it, but it's definitely not as easy to feel the zoom turbo unit as opposed to like a zoom strobo unit. You know, the zoom strobo unit, there's no strobo board. It's literally just the zoom strobo and then an insole and then your foot. And in this case, you know, you have your foot, the insole, a stiff strobo board, and then the zoom turbo unit. So this type of like setup isn't as nice in my opinion. Of course, it's not as crazy as like, you know, the zoom strobo unit or an air strobo unit. So if you want something a little bit more mellow, which I feel like Kyrie likes, then obviously this is better. All right, now let's check the thickness of the cushion. So here in the forefoot, including the insole, is 21.14 millimeters thick. And without the insole, it's 15.5 millimeters thick. So you're 15.5 millimeters off the ground here in the forefoot. So that's actually very, very low to the ground. All right, next, checking the heel, it's 18.86 millimeters off of the ground. So it's very, very low to the ground, which is interesting. I do have smaller feet, so I mean, all of the shoes that we've seen before as far as the dismantling goes, I mean, this is actually very, very low to the ground. But keep in mind, like I said, I do have smaller feet, so give or take maybe like a millimeter or two. But still, this cushioning setup is super duper low to the ground. All right, next, one thing that I want to go over is the actual like midsole, you know? So where you are, like as far as the midsole goes, like where your foot is placed, is way different, right? So a lot of the time, companies do this, you know? So if you look on the outside of the shoe, you're like, okay, so it's a full length Phylon, or it's just Phylon foam. And you're like, okay, so it should be around this thick, maybe a little bit thinner, right? But that's actually not the case. It's, your foot is literally like right there. You know, I'm trying to show it, but yeah, it's like literally right there. And you have like around 10-15 millimeters of foam that's coming up as a sidewall. So if you look here in the heel, you have all of this caging you, and you can see the plastic TPU heel counter. It's an internal TPU heel counter. It's kind of hard to see because there's a lot of layers of stuff, but that's caging you here, you know, as you guys can see here in the heel, which is kind of crazy. Of course, there is an insole, so you're raised up probably around 5 millimeters, but it's still acting as a sidewall here in the heel, and as well as here in the forefoot. It comes up like a lot here in the forefoot, as you guys can see from the midsole and this forefoot clip, this plastic forefoot clip that says Nike Zoom Turbo. And it also comes up a lot here on the medial side. Of course, you don't really need a whole lot of support here on the medial side, but they decided to anyway. So that's there all for support and containing your foot here into the footbed. And also, you guys can see the fingers, right? So as you guys can see from the Kyrie 7, there are 4 fingers. And that does add for support as well. I don't really think it's all too necessary, but of course, I mean, it doesn't add a whole bunch of bulk and a whole bunch of weight to the shoe like the Kyrie 6 midfoot strap does, and also the Kyrie 5 fly trap strap, you know? So I actually like how this system works. And if you look here into the actual inside of the shoe, it comes all the way down into the footbed of the shoe, like here on all 4 sides. So you can see that it comes down all the way. So these fingers aren't only here, it actually comes down all the way here into the footbed, which is nice. It reminds me of old school like free flowing flywire, so that's really cool as well. As far as the materials go, so here in the forefoot, you guys can see this mesh material, and this mesh material is actually made up of 2. So you guys can see this purple, or I guess purple pink mesh, like very, very well spaced out mesh. And then you have another textile material under that. And then another material, it's just, all of this is just super, super thin. And then another underlaying material, which has a little bit of foam, which is kind of crazy. So, I mean, when you feel it, it feels super thin, but then when you look at it, it actually looks slightly thick, which is interesting, right? And then here in the tongue, there's not a whole lot of padding at the beginning of the tongue, but once you come up to the end of the tongue, you can see all this padding, which feels great on foot. And as you guys can see, this tongue is a half boot construction tongue. So this tongue is connected to this material. You guys can see it a little bit better in this. So the tongue right here is attached to this material, and it's stitched to this mesh material. It's probably to just keep everything in place. And also you guys can see the plastic TPU heel counter. Right, like if you look underneath this, it's actually super thin. And then here in the ankle area, as you guys can see, there's absolutely no padding all the way at the bottom of the heel, but once you come up, kind of like where your Achilles is, there's a lot more padding. It's actually double layered. There's 2 layers of padding. Feels great. It locks your foot down because of course, here's your heel. You know, your heel is right here. And then like, of course, the anatomy of the foot, it kind of like curves in like this. So what this foam does is hold your foot down. It also feels good on the Achilles. So I really like how that feels as well. And that's pretty much it. Like, it surprises me how thin this mesh material is. It's made up of like 3 materials, like I said, but they're very, very thin and they're glued together. So that is the dismantling of the Kyrie 7. It's a pretty simple shoe as far as tech goes. One thing that did intrigue me is the actual foam being soft. That's pretty interesting. But like I said, the strobe board is very, very stiff. Oh, one thing that I forgot to do is measure the zoom turbo unit. It's probably gonna be around 6-7 millimeters out, I believe. So 5.95 millimeters thick. So I mean, that's not that thick. Of course, there's no more air in here, so it might be a little bit thicker when there's air in there. And you guys can see all the fibers in there, which always intrigues me. I really like how that looks. And I kind of like feeling it. It's basically like cloth. So anyways, that's the Kyrie 7 dismantled. Very, very good shoe to play in. I love how minimal it is. Like, as you guys can see from the upper, it's just super minimal, but also super supportive. From all of this midsole coming up as a sidewall, you guys can see the support is there and all that. So again, if you guys do want to cop, I'll leave a link in the description box. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.